Hello and welcome. Tonight, Kogi State Governor Yahaya Bello throws hat in the ring, declares for presidency in 2023, says he will restore hope and guarantee safety of all Nigerians. Igbo leaders clamor for zoning of presidency to the southeast, also call for review of the security architecture in the region. Inspector General of Police deploys police officers to man the Abuja-Kaduna highway, also sends some officers to protect engineers working at the damaged rail tracks at Dutse. Ukrainian president says retreating Russian troops are leaving behind landmines, creating a catastrophic situation. And on business news tonight, Nigeria's external reserves recorded its first accretion in 4 weeks after dropping by $313 million in March.
On sports news tonight, Mali sack head coach Mohamed Magasuba after their failure to qualify for the 2022 FIFA World Cup in Qatar.
Political activities are in top gear ahead of the 2023 general election, and as a start to that, the Kogi State Governor, Mr. Yahaya Bello, today announced his running for the office of the president on the platform of the All Progressives Congress, APC. The event held at the Eagle Square in Abuja and present are party chieftains, including the former Minister of Aviation, Mr. Femi Fani-Kayode, former Deputy Senate Leader, Jonathan Zingwina, as well as other leaders. If elected, the governor promised to run Nigeria on what he describes as the political philosophy of social reforms.
The Eagle Square, Abuja, is packed with party faithful and supporters who have come to identify with the Kogi State Governor as he declares for the 2023 presidential race. It's a carnival-like event, well attended by party chieftains, including former Aviation Minister Chief Femi Fani-Kayode, Chairman of the occasion, Mr. Salvador Moshood, and former Deputy Senate Leader, Mr. Jonathan Zwingina, who drummed support for the presidential hopeful.
I'm happy to inform this august occasion and all Nigerians that the leadership search for the continuation of President Buhari's positive legacies has been found in Governor Yahaya Adoza Bello.
The Deputy Governor of Kogi State, who passionately rolls out his boss's credentials, calls on the ruling party to adopt a zoning formula that will favor the youthful population.
90% of PVC holders, the power to choose, the power to vote, the power to make, 90% are in our hands. And if 90% of us have the weapon to make the choice, it is time for that zoning to come towards those below 50 years.
Hafsat Abiola Costello is the Director General of the Yahaya Bello Campaign Organization. She says she's the first woman to assume such a position, while also giving credit to Governor Bello for being gender-friendly.
We signal to all the vested interests in Nigeria that the takeover by Nigeria's women, the takeover by Nigerians' young people, the takeover by Nigeria's people has begun.
The governor, in his declaration speech, promised to run Nigeria on what he describes as the political philosophy of social reforms if elected president.
I am running to restore hope by providing firm guarantees of security, unity and progress to all Nigerians. Our focus will be proper management of our great diversities so that it can really be an advantage We will foster more cooperation and integration among citizens and make sure that progress is made steadily across all sectors and indicators. And I hereby formally declare the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I say to the court now, when we get
The presidential aspirant adds that in tackling insecurity, he will have zero tolerance for non-state actors who take up arms against Nigeria. The stage is set for what promises to be an interesting electioneering season as the Kogi State Governor joins the list of aspirants under the ruling APC, positioning him for the plum job.
One of the issues at play in all the political parties is zoning of elective offices. And for the leaders of the Southeast, it's their turn to have a shot at the presidency. Speaking at a forum in Enugu today, notable Igbo leaders, including His Royal Majesty, the Obi of Onitsha, Nnaemeka Echebe, and Professor Uche Azikiwe, wife of the First Republic President, canvassed support for Igbo presidency, saying it's long overdue.
In a plural society, we need to build bridges, we need to make alliances, we need to make deals with other people. And I think that Yahaya Jaga has just given us a catalog of all the efforts we're making. All I can say is that we don't go to bed until we get what we want.
President from the Southeast, 2023. And I think it is not too much for Nigeria to give us that. For what we have gone through or heard or read, Igbo has been sacrificing their position, that presidential position, for what? For peace and unity of this country, starting from Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe. Yakubu Gowon said, no victor, no vanquished. Please forget about the war. The war has come, the war has gone, and we have been together since after the war.
Another vital arm of government in the presidential system is the legislature. And today, citizens engage federal lawmakers in a town hall conversation still in Enugu. The Open Square, a regional town hall put together by Daria Media with support from Channels Television, gave the people the opportunity to express their concerns about their representatives, whom they say are sometimes unreachable. On their part, the federal lawmakers explained the difficulty in implementation of their roles. The regional town hall meeting is the third in the series.
Beyond the representation that involves more than just listening to their constituents, lawmakers also have to do the jobs they have been mandated to accomplish. To ensure this, Open Square, an initiative of Daria Media with the support of Channels Television, the MacArthur Foundation and Radio Now 95.3, has brought together lawmakers and their constituents to dialogue for understanding with an aim to strengthen the country's democracy.
I wonder how he operates because...
Members of the audience from the town hall in Enugu and a remote location in Owerri, the Imo State capital, expressed their concerns on several issues, including constituency projects, representation, and how they feel about the stewardship of their legislators.
One of your most important duties constitutionally is not just oversight. It should be, please underline again, active and result-based oversight.
When I hear women say, we're not being carried along, I just came up to support it. Because what would the electorate benefit from the elected who now make themselves inaccessible for, especially women?
The lawmakers then respond to their submissions.
Constituency project is nowhere in the Constitution of Nigeria. It's also not even in our Senate standing rules. It's the creative of National Assembly in order to reach out to our constituents and also to our constituencies.
Even when we have done our oversight and we have our report, we still have to send the report back to the executive to implement. That is the issue. And so, where the executive is not inclined to do anything about it, then it will not look to the public as if nothing is being done.
But the lawmakers say they are not left without their own challenges in the administration of their duties.
People expect so much from the parliamentarians when, in the first place, they're not in the position to do that. So they have just access to limited resources.
The expectation is that they should serve well. But some of the activities, of what happens in government is first and foremost initiated from the executive. The National Parliament can intervene as much as the number you have in that parliament. And presently it is lopsided.
While conversations like this seek a balance between the needs of the citizens and the functions of the legislators, their constituents expect an outcome, one that will effect the desired change that will bring smiles to their faces.
In the meantime, the former chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Professor Attahiru Jega, is calling for the rescue of Nigeria from greedy politicians, who he describes as unpatriotic and self-serving. Speaking at the National Convention of the People's Redemption Party, PRP, which took place in the nation's capital, Abuja, today, Professor Jega explains that there is no effective governance currently in the country.
Members of the People's Redemption Party from across the country have gathered for this convention as the party prepares for a successful outing in the 2023 general elections. The new national executives of the party take their oath of office as they prepare to get down to work immediately. The party, which prides itself as the oldest political party in the country, having been initially registered in 1978, is in merger talks with all the political groups. However, there are conditions.
Anybody who wants to dissolve into PRP is welcome. On only this condition, we will not change our name and our logo. Because that is our identity. That tells who we are. That is the character of PRP. So on that there is no negotiation, unless you tell us to go and change that.
Former chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Professor Attahiru Jega, is a member of the party, and he charges members to mobilize more Nigerians to join the party.
Our government at the state, at the local, and at the federal level have long abandoned governance. And no country can develop without good governance, without good people driving good governance. So I urge us to go back and realize that really the work ahead of us is quite a lot. It may even seem difficult, but it is not impossible to do it.
The party is hoping to increase its membership base to 30,000 members in each of the 36 states of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory.
Nobel laureate Professor Wole Soyinka is expressing doubt that the president's promise to revisit the case of Chief Bola Ige may yield any acceptable conclusion. His fear arises from the recent election of one of the prime suspects, Chief Iyola Omishire, as the National Secretary of the All Progressives Congress, APC. Professor Soyinka believes that with such a position, it will be difficult to properly investigate and conclude the trial of all the suspects. Professor Soyinka says that 3 months have passed since the 20th anniversary of the murder of Bola Ige, an occasion the family used to remind the president of a subsisting election pledge to revisit the case, and nothing has changed. The statement reads in part, "We are speaking of blatant, undeniable exercise of political interventions during investigations and the arraignment of suspects. Prior incumbency of the position of National Secretary of a ruling party has demonstrated the potent interventionist clout that can be wielded from that office." He concludes that the investigative revisit has already lost its credibility. In part two, after the break, Inspector General of Police deploys police officers to man Abuja-Kaduna Highway. Plus, Anambra State government to set up a Truth and Reconciliation Commission declares April the 4th Prayer Day for Peace. That's in a moment. Join us again. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Kogi State Governor Yahaya Bello throws hat in the ring, declares for presidency in 2023, says he will restore hope and guarantee safety of all Nigerians. Igbo leaders clamor for zoning of presidency to the southeast, also call for review of security architecture in the region. Inspector General of Police deploys police officers to man the Abuja-Kaduna highway, also sends some officers to protect engineers working at the damaged rail tracks at Dutse. And Ukrainian president says retreating Russian troops are leaving behind landmines, creating a dangerous situation. To security matters now. Following Monday's train attack in Kaduna State, the Inspector General of Police, Usman Alkali Baba, has deployed more officers to the Abuja-Kaduna highway to boost safety on that axis. During an assessment tour of the security situation on the highway, the police boss says adequate arrangements have been made to secure the road against bandits. He adds that officers have also been deployed to the scene of the train attack in Dutse, where repairs of the destroyed rail tracks are ongoing.
I set out to check on the situation along Abuja-Kaduna road. We've been able to make arrangements to secure the road. So my coming out, one is to check the deployment we made to ensure that the road is safe. Secondly, to also go and check the deployment we had made at the scene of the train accident, where repairs is taking place. We have also deployed our men to assist the engineers in taking care of the situation. So I have gone to the site to also check. I also want to reassure members of the public that the propaganda or this issue of Kaduna cannot be accessed either by road, by air, or by train is not true. The road is safe for motorists to follow, and we'll try our best to keep the road safe. And that is why I am out to do that and to ensure that officers and men that are deployed for such duty are performing the duty diligently.
Indeed, it has been a challenging week for Kaduna State with severe terrorist attacks, and the bandits wreaked havoc in that state as well. First, the terrorists attacked the Kaduna International Airport, killing one person. 48 hours after, an Abuja-Kaduna bound train was attacked and 8 passengers were killed. And the next day, there was yet another incident on the same route. And just as people were coming to terms with all these attacks, Ngwabulu's community in Jukun local government area was invaded by terrorists, leaving 2 persons dead and several others kidnapped. So what has happened to intelligence gathering? Why has it been difficult to be more proactive than being reactive? To look at this tonight, we have a retired principal Staff Officer of the DSS, Mr. Shey Adetayo. A pleasure having you with us on the news at 10.
Good evening.
Now, how would you see the combination of attacks all happening within a week?
Well, one can say that maybe because of the coming, the Ramadan that is starting today, and they tried to launch several attacks ahead of the Ramadan when they will not be able to carry out attack. But we will know that from tomorrow if we don't see attacks coming. Or it could be that they've been emboldened so much that they believe that the current security structures cannot actually stop them at doing what they're doing.
Well, one would have thought that after that attack at the airport, intelligence reports would have been in hand with security operatives to prevent that unfortunate incident which happened in Dutse, where the rail track was damaged and 8 travelers killed?
Well, if by what we've received from, sources and also what we can see in the media, intelligence was actually made available to the NRC. And with what we got, that both the DSS and the military formation actually, gave them intelligence that this is going to happen. And they even advised that the night train should be suspended, but this wasn't done.
So the DSS actually supplied this intelligence?
Oh, definitely they did.
Interesting.
And the advice was that the night train should be suspended. And there are evidence to us in that direction that they were actually, and we've not seen the NRC coming out to deny the fact that they were actually advised not to run the evening train. So the question is why?
But in your own assessment, what would you say is responsible sometimes for failure of intelligence in almost all the attacks, that's besides the one you mentioned?
So when a nation is going through situations like this, you continue to have to rely on intelligence on a daily basis. However, one thing is for you to have intelligence, another thing is for the action agencies to act on it. Not only acting on it, but act based on the advice that have been given. Also, subsequent review must also be taken into consideration. We see issues around, raising ISSM, that is Integrated Security System, as being the issue. It's like you come into a gunfight with a knife. ISSM cannot solve the problem at hand. It is just the best it can do is just to give you, a warning that probably something is placed on the track, and it won't even solve anything because that is just one of the easiest way. These people can actually derail a train without, incurring much casualty. But there are several other ways in which they can use to derail a train without actually putting explosives on the rail. And if we should force them into that, because we don't have a way of protecting the system, they would use other means, and there will be much casualty. And one of those means is to fire a rocket, an RPG on an incoming train. They target the first one, and the whole train will derail. We have so much casualties. They will go there, pick the number of people they want to pick. Even with ISS, even if you are warned and you are notified that such is happening, if you send in an aircraft or an helicopter, can you fire at a vehicle carrying hostages? You can't. The best they can do is just to watch them as they drive into the forest. This same people has AA rifle, that is anti-aircraft rifle. They can shoot down the jet, they can shoot down an aircraft, or even an helicopter. When they dire straight, what we're expecting now is that action that is bigger than someone suggesting an ISSM in a war situation. It's just like, you are trying to renovate a house. Like somebody in Ukraine now, in Kiev now, trying to renovate his house. Of what value is the house renovation when your town is undergoing a war? Facing a war, shelling from Russia. So that's the situation we have. ISM can work on Lagos Ibadan because the challenge on Lagos Ibadan rail is not the same with the environment in Kaduna. Environment in Kaduna is a war situation, and the earlier we declare a state of war in those areas, and government should activate protocols a country used to activate when you are in a war situation and deal with the situation. All this one is more or less like a cosmetic approach, and we're just window dressing, and it will not solve. Another attack will come, even put ISM in ISSM on Kaduna, they will still attack it. These are people that are emboldened enough to attack a military formation. Now, NDA has solid response asset on ground. They knew, and yet they attacked. It means that they don't care whether you respond to the attack. They will do what they want to do. 10, 15 minutes, they are out.
So is there a way we can rejig the intelligence network to make it more effective?
The problem now is not about intelligence.
Okay, what's
the problem?
It's
about what we do with the intelligence that we have.
How we act on that intelligence.
Are we acting properly? Are we doing the right thing? Or are we doing what we feel we want to do? Or what has been advised by professionals as to how to address the situation at hand? No, we have people, we have friends that have been lost, and have people close to us that are right now being kidnapped. Nobody is happy with what is happening. And if you're a Nigerian right now, you should be concerned about what is happening, because it rubs on all of us. We're talking about Kaduna now. If care is not taken, these people will be emboldened and start moving down south. So if anybody feels that they are safe right now, businesses are affected, So economy is affected. So many things are affected. And we're talking about a nation where we are losing jobs every day. And this is happening. More jobs will be lost.
Now, Mr. Adetayo, going forward now, what should be done to prevent future attacks?
The people that are responsible should advise the president the right way. Because the belief is that is what they told the president, that ISSM is the solution. And he didn't waste time. He gave approval. But we are professionals. ISSM is not something new. It's just a bunch of sensors and cameras and a system where people monitor those sensors, and then you have a notification system where you can trigger action agencies to respond. That's all. Chevron, oil and gas companies, big companies have that in Nigeria. Go to the oil and gas in Niger Delta. They have that. It's not a big deal. It's not a rocket science. It can't solve the problem.
So what can solve the problem?
What we need to solve the problem is that we need to actually deal with the issue. There's a war situation. We're having people with capabilities to wage war against Nigeria, and they are waging war against Nigeria. Let us meet them fire for fire, law for law. We need to create an enabling environment for the military to be able to thrive. Under this condition that we have, the military cannot thrive. They cannot be able to launch the adequate response to what we have.
Mr. Yahaya Adetayo, a retired Principal Staff Officer of the DSS, a pleasure sharing your thoughts with us on the News at 10.
Thank you so much.
Now, still talking security, as part of efforts to tackle the rising insecurity in Anambra State as well as the Southeast, a one-day peace-building and security dialogue meeting has been held with major players. Addressing the meeting at the Professor Dora Akunyili Women Development Center, Awka, the governor, Professor Chukwuma Soludo, says a prayer rally on April the 4th will put an end to the Monday sit-at-home order. Critical state actors also called for the release of the leader of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu.
The venue of the summit in the Anambra State capital, Awka, is filled to capacity. Critical stakeholders have come to be part of the ongoing discourse at the one-day peace-building and security dialogue. First to speak is the Obi of Onitsha, Igwe Nnemeka Achebe, reports on efforts towards achieving peace and security in Anambra and the Southeast. He says there is an agreement to reactivate Monday businesses as the sit-at-home order has been suspended, and also called for the unconditional release of the leader of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, Nnamdi Kanu.
We join our voices to call for the unconditional release of President Buharis by the federal government in order to douse the current tension across the Southeast.
Other stakeholders identify poor parenting and joblessness as catalysts to rising crime and insecurity in the state, but add that security be restored to move the Anambra economy forward.
Security is the primary job of another basis for governance. Investment is running away. This includes really so much resource.
The Speaker of the State House of Assembly assures citizens that there will be an accelerated passage of any law on security to ensure peace and stability in the state. For the state governor, Professor Chukwuma Soludo, the Monday sit-at-home is suspended, adding that anybody who tries to enforce such will be treated as a criminal.
The spirit of getting Anambra, we're irrepressible people. The criminal elements, the few less than 1%, cannot define who we are. Well, they cannot define who we are. If you're then adamant, being a criminal, we do to you, we deal with you the way criminals are dealt with.
The meeting is rounded off with a resolve that on Monday, April the 4th, all denominations will hold prayer sessions which will mark the end of the Monday sit-at-home in Anambra. And the state government also has plans to set a Peace and Reconciliation Commission.
To strengthen civil-military relations in southwest Oyo State, the governor, Seyi Makinde, says he will offer maximum support to the Nigerian Air Force to carry out its air surveillance operations and improve its security architecture. At the groundbreaking ceremony, Governor Makinde pledged 500 million naira to support the construction of the 671 Air Force base located in Ajah. He says the state is anxious to see the completion of the project, adding that the location of the Ibadan airport and the Air Force Base will also enhance the state's economic expansion.
The entourage of the Chief of Air Staff makes a stop at the office of the Governor of Oyo State, Seyi Makinde, located in Agodi, Ibadan, the state capital. All courtesies done, Governor Makinde and his cabinet members joined the NAF boss and his team to the Ajia area where the new Air Force detachment permanent site is located. An excited crowd awaits them here to witness the flag-off of the event. The groundbreaking ceremony at the permanent site of the Nigeria Air Force Base 671 detachment has moved from a dream to reality as Governor Makinde lays the foundation with these few bricks. He notes that the project is part of efforts of his administration to turn the Ajia area into an aerotropolis, as he promises to start development at the site with a 500 million naira support.
I must stress that this new Air Force base is not just an infrastructural project. It keys into our plans for a robust security architecture for Oyo State. As more businesses move to Oyo and the state takes a more cosmopolitan outlook, the challenges that we will face will increase. With this in mind, we made security one of the 4 pillars of our roadmap to accelerated development.
In his remarks, the Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Oladayo Amo, thanks the Oyo State government for providing the Nigerian Air Force with land to serve as the permanent site for the construction of structures for the Nigerian Air Force Base in Ibadan.
This base will therefore serve as a suitable alternative to Lagos Airfield for the Nigerian Air Force to launch air operation in the region seamlessly and more efficiently. This base will therefore serve as a suitable alternative to Lagos Airfield for the Nigerian Air Force to launch air operation in the region seamlessly and more efficiently.
The new base, when completed, is expected to enhance the performance of security operatives in the state and beyond, while serving as a suitable alternative to the Lagos airfield for the Nigerian Air Force to launch seamless operations in the region.
Still on security issues, 12 days after 3 siblings went missing in Kabusa community in the nation's capital, Abuja, their mother, Mrs. Joy Sunday, is pleading with the government and police to help find her children. She told Channels Television that there is no communication on the whereabouts of her children who were last seen on March the 22nd.
Kabusa is about 30 kilometers away from the city center, with a population of more than 100,000 people. Tuesday, March 22nd, 2022, is not one that the residents of the area will forget easily. This is the premises where 3 siblings, Marvelous Alex and Rehoboth Sunday, attend school. It's under lock and key following the sudden disappearance of his siblings. The youngest, Rehoboth, is 2 years old, while the oldest, Marvelous, is 8 years old. Alex is 6 years old. Distraught and struggling to come to terms with the situation, the mother of the siblings narrates the last time she set her eyes on her children.
On the 22 March, last week, Tuesday, I take my children to school around 7:30. I leave them, come back home. Then they said the auntie said that they are having this thing short time for they are doing short time for school. Then they will close 1 o'clock, not 3 o'clock. Then that 3 o'clock, that 1 o'clock, I did not go there 1 o'clock. When I reached there 1:30, I did not see my children. Since then we have been finding that.
The family is yet to be contacted for any ransom, as they fear they may have been kidnapped. Residents of the area had earlier protested the disappearance of the siblings. They are calling on the relevant authorities to do all they can to find the children.
We are all sitting here when the mom says she's going to the school to pick her children. So on reaching the school, she called to confirm if the children are at home, that she couldn't find them in the school. So immediately we joined her in searching for the children, thinking that maybe they might miss their way, but unfortunately, there's no news about them.
Since that on Tuesday, we have been running up and down looking for the children or seeking for a way to know their whereabouts. But up to now, no understand. So their missing is very, very shocking to me.
The police is already aware of the incident. According to a statement from the FCT police spokesperson, Mrs. Josephine Ade, the teachers and the proprietor of the school have been arrested. The case has now been transferred to the State Criminal Investigation Department. It went further adds that the police is yet to establish the report that they were kidnapped, as nobody has made any contact with their parents or anybody.
To other stories now. January 2021 to December 2030 has been named the decade of gas development for Nigeria by the federal government. This comes to test as major European countries seek alternative to Russia, which exports about 45% gas, their source of heat and energy. Our business correspondent, John Mekwa, reports that industry players have been exploring the possibility of stepping in to cushion the disrupted supply.
Nigeria has the largest proven gas reserves in Africa and the 9th largest in the world, with 5.68 billion cubic meters of natural gas, even more than the proven oil reserves, which is at 36.97 million barrels. The country's gas reserves are over 900 times the total oil reserves, yet it has received less attention. One of the consequences of that has been huge losses through gas flaring, which is an offshoot of crude production. Between 2016 and 2020, Nigeria flared over 1.25 trillion cubic feet of natural gas into the atmosphere, and that's according to the NNPC oil and gas reports. PwC estimates the loss of 233 billion naira to gas flaring. That translates to 3.8% of global total cost in 2018.
For a long time, there was no use for gas, particularly locally. So it was until 1999 when you had NLNG and you began to have the also condensed and NGLs and all of that, those international projects, those projects for gas export. So Nigeria began to export gas and flaring started to reduce.
The issue was recently deliberated on the floor of the House of Representatives, and it considered that in 2002, NNPC Limited and the Algerian National Oil and Gas Company signed a memorandum of understanding for a $12 billion 4.128 kilometer natural gas pipeline project. This was projected to have an annual capacity of 30 billion cubic meters that will extend gas supply to Europe. There's a $2.89 billion Trans-Nigeria gas pipeline, which should run from Kwaibo Terminal to the gas terminal in Kano. It has 3.5 billion cubic meters capacity per year. There's also the 678-kilometer West African gas pipeline, a natural gas pipeline to supply gas from Nigeria's Escravos region of the Niger Delta area to Benin, Togo, and Ghana. The state of these projects have become topics of conversations after the federal government responded to the need to plug the gas supply shortage in Europe following Russian invasion to Ukraine.
The House resolved to urge the NNPC to provide information regarding the implementation, funds utilization, and status of the project. Also urge the NNPC to review the National Gas Master Plan in relation to the project to conform with the variables of today's global economy.
Although there have been agreements and arrangements on pipeline projects, the private sector remains the backbone of investment in the sector. This, according to Dr. Ayodele, is what the Petroleum Industry Act offers.
And of course, we got our own local issues too. We need to do much more in terms of policy stability and seeing policies through.
While attention is currently on exporting gas to boost the country's foreign reserve, there are others in the sector who believe that areas such as converting flared gas into useful form to power machines, produce fertilizer, among others, are the low-hanging fruit and should be given priority.
Based on statistics, about 2015, we're consuming about maybe 50,000 metric tons, but as now we're consuming about 1.2 million metric tons, and Nigeria still doesn't have capacity for it. And that was why, the Nigeria LNG, decided to domesticate all its production so that they can increase local demand. So I would expect that even though, helping countries like Ukraine, Europe, and and all of that is good because it helps us with foreign earnings, it's still important for us to domesticate, try to look at the local market, see how you can increase the supply, before we now decide to go global.
Whether for domestic use or for export, the conflict between Russia and Ukraine has turned attention to the vast potential of gas, which is in Nigeria and remains largely untapped. Ini John Mekwa, Channels Television News.
From energy to education, the Academic Staff Union of Nigerian Polytechnics, ASUP, has threatened to shut down all polytechnics across the country if the federal government fails to meet up with its demand. The ASUP president, Mr. Anderson Ezebe, made this known while addressing journalists at the end of the union's National Executive Council meeting in Yola, the Adamawa state capital, where members displayed placards with various inscriptions to drive home their demands. According to him, ASUP is set to resume its suspended industrial action by reconvening in a month's time to make that decision.
The new Minimum Wage Act has been in implementation since April 2019, with a further directive by the President of the nation that all staff of all ministries, departments, agencies, and institutions of the government should be paid the accrued amounts by December 31st, 2019. The government has reneged in this as the arrears accruing to staff of federal polytechnics remain unpaid more than 2 years after the expiration of the President's directive and nearly 3 years after implementation. As we speak, our members are still owed for 10 months. In addition, several states of the Federation have blatantly refused to implement this act in their own institutions. As a consequence, the government has continued to withhold portions of the legitimate emoluments of members of our union, both in federal and state institutions, without their consent. Following exhaustive deliberations on the issues as listed above and indeed others, the 102nd meeting of the Union's National Executive Council has resolved to give the government a further 1 month as an ultimatum to address the outstanding issues as listed or face a review of the suspended industrial action by our union.
Now let's find out what's happening in the world of business. Teniola Shobawale is standing by with the details.
Thanks a lot, Melinda. Welcome to Business News. Nigeria's FX reserve has recorded its first accretion in 4 weeks as it increased by $21.11 million week on week to $39.55 billion as at March the 31st. And that's according to latest data from the central bank. This comes after the country's external buffers dropped by $316.7 million to $39.54 billion earlier in the week, amid fluctuation in the price of crude oil at the international market caused by the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. However, further analysis shows that between January and March this year, the reserves have shedded $973.7 million from the $40.52 billion recorded on January the 1st this year, partly due to CBN's intervention at the forex market. Meanwhile, trading activity at the FMDQ exchange ended slightly mixed this week as the total turnover of transactions carried out at the FX spot, forwards and futures markets rose by 41.77% to $891.71 million as at April the 1st. A breakdown of the trading result shows that total value of transactions at the FX spot market dropped by 3.74% to $518.22 million. Futures surged by more than 1,700%, while the FX derivatives market turnover rose by 312.10%. On the other hand, the Naira fell by 0.01% to 415 Naira 81 kobo against the dollar at the Nigerian Autonomous Foreign Exchange window of the Forex market, in contrast to 415 Naira 77 kobo recorded last week. President Muhammadu Buhari has approved the reappointment of the Managing Director of the Nigerian Export and Import Bank, Bello, for a second and final four-year term. A statement from the Ministry of Finance mentions that the President also approved the reappointment of the executive directors of the bank. According to the statement, the team had over the first 5 years performed well by recording great increase in the operating profit of the bank and significantly reducing non-performing loans. The managing director and the two other management teams were appointed on April the 10th, 2017, and their first five-year term is due to expire on April the 9th. And that's it on Business News tonight. I'm Teniola Shobowale. It's back to Melinda for the rest of the news at 10.
Many thanks, Seniola. On the international scene, Ukraine claims Russian forces have made a rapid retreat from around Kiev, with the Deputy Defense Minister saying that the whole region around the capital has been retaken. But as Russian forces retreat, evidence of civilian killings are mounting, as Ukrainian president says Russian troops are leaving behind landmines around homes and even dead bodies, creating a dangerous situation. It comes as 7 humanitarian corridors are opened to evacuated civilians.
Exhausted, fearful but grateful, this is how refugees from the Ukrainian cities of Mariupol and Melitopol said they felt following evacuations on Friday. Some of the passengers had to stand throughout the 12-hour journey due to the high number of people trying to escape. More evacuations are planned after Ukraine's Deputy Prime Minister announced the opening of 7 humanitarian corridors, including from Mariupol. Encircled since the early days of Russia's invasion, the port city has been Moscow's main target in the southeastern region of Donbass. An estimated 160,000 people are still trapped in the city, short of food, water and medicines. The International Committee of the Red Cross sent a team on Friday to lead a convoy out of the city, but they turned back, saying conditions made it impossible to proceed. In other developments, Russian forces targeted a major Ukrainian oil refinery in a series of strikes, according to a Russian military spokesperson. It comes a day after the Kremlin accused Kyiv of mounting a helicopter attack on a civilian fuel depot inside Russian territory. Russian troops have also violently dispersed a pro-Ukraine rally taking place in the occupied southern town of Enehoda. The town is home to Europe's biggest nuclear plant, providing half of Ukraine's nuclear power. Meanwhile, in an early morning video address, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said Russian troops in the north of the country were pulling back slowly but noticeably.
He added that Russian troops had moved towards Donbass and the heavily bombarded northeastern city of Kharkiv, saying the situation there remained difficult. And the mayor of Bucha, near Kiev, says 300 people have been buried in a mass grave in the town, and the streets remain littered with bodies of civilians allegedly killed by Russian forces. The report comes after the Ukrainian army retook control of the key town from Russia.
Hi, everyone.
As the war continues, the United States says it's providing Ukraine with additional security assistance, as well as supplies to respond to a potential Russian chemical attack.
The United States and members of the international community have, of course, repeatedly warned about the potential for Russia to use chemical or biological weapons in Ukraine, and that Moscow is possibly planning a false flag operation. In an effort to assist our Ukrainian partners, the U.S. government is providing the government of Ukraine with life-saving equipment and supplies that could be deployed in the event of Russia's use of a chemical and biological weapon against Ukraine. It does not compromise our domestic preparedness in any way, shape, or form, just for everybody's awareness, but we are providing it as we are providing a range of materials and equipment.
Russia has failed to take a major Ukrainian city since it launched its invasion on February the 24th. It has depicted its drawdown of forces near the capital Kyiv as a goodwill gesture in peace negotiations. But Ukraine and its allies say Russian forces have been forced to regroup after suffering heavy losses.
Stop Putin! Stop war!
And for another week, thousands have taken to the streets in cities across the world to show support for Ukraine. The war has killed thousands and uprooted a quarter of Ukraine's population.
And let's find out what's up in the world of sports with Ayotunde Balogun.
Many thanks, Melinda. The Malian Football Federation have sacked head coach Mohamed Magasuba after their failure to qualify for the 2022 FIFA World Cup. Magasuba, who has been in charge of his country's national team since 2017, was sacked with all of his technical and backroom staff. Mali were beaten 1-0 on goal aggregate by Tunisia in the playoff as they searched for a first World Cup appearance. He becomes the second managerial casualty after Nigeria's Augustine Aguavan was fired by the Nigeria Football Federation under similar circumstance. FIFA has announced that all 211 member associations, including the Nigeria Football Federation, the NFF, will receive $8 million in a 4-year period from 2023 to 2026. FIFA said it's part of its new Forward 3.0 development funds, which have seen an increase of 25%. The World Football Governing Body added that the money will go into solidarity and football development projects of each member association under its new regulations and requirements, which will be released in the coming weeks. In the English Premier League, Manchester City have made an instant return to the top of the table with a comfortable victory over struggling Burnley. Liverpool's win over Watford FC earlier had knocked the defending champions off the summit for the first time since December 2021, but City manager Pep Guardiola's side responded in impressive style at Turf Moor. Christian Eriksen scored his first Brentford goal as the Bees came from behind to beat Chelsea for the first time since 1939. Well, the game was played at Stamford Bridge. Manchester United's hopes of making next year's Champions League were dented in a draw with Leicester City at Old Trafford. Wolverhampton Wanderers boosted their hopes of playing in Europe next season after beating Aston Villa by 2-1. Ukraine's reigning champions Dynamo Kiev have confirmed that they were planning to play a series of friendlies with PSG, that's Paris Saint-Germain, and FC Barcelona between April and June to raise money for their war-torn country. Ukraine's championship has not resumed after the winter break owing to the Russian invasion of the country, which began on February the 24th. The season's future is in question as the infrastructure of top-flight clubs has been badly damaged by Russian bombing and foreign players are leaving Ukrainian teams. The club said that friendly matches tagged Match for Peace, Stop the War will also include Borussia Dortmund, Steaua Bucharest and Legia Warsaw. I'm Ayotunde Balogun. That sports news is back to you, Melinda.
Many thanks, Ayotunde. And the main news again. The governor of Kogi State, Mr. Yahaya Bello, today threw his hat in the ring, declared his intention to run for presidency in 2023. He said he will restore hope and guarantee safety of all Nigerians. The Inspector General of Police deployed police officers to man the Abuja-Kaduna highway, also sent some officers to protect engineers working at the damaged rail tracks at Dutse. I'm Melinda Akinlami. On behalf of the team, good night.